parentheses 5 lines from the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Okay.
we started before at Avol Elamais.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, so this parentheses, we didn't delve very far into it, but it's a very powerful message in this parentheses. Because we were saying that 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 the higher worlds, they have a sense of take it out the same. They have a sense of they actually are margish elokus. That's also not good.
It's all right.
They can use that because by them elokus is begilui, and they actually, as we discussed, the union from mahuz ha'oir, they actually, by them, the mahuz ha'oir is begilui. I'm not going to go back to this, you have your notes. But whereas in the lower worlds, this, the mahuz ha'oir is behelim, because the lower worlds, especially the olam asiyah gashmi, our world, is created at such a level that the world actually perceives itself as a separate entity. Even if there is understanding simply intellectually that the world did not make itself and thus there is a creator, but this is simply the knowledge of it, the recognition, the logical recognition of it, but not the perception, the actual relating to Elokus. We have absolutely no way to relate to an Indian that is not worldly, that is Eliki. And the first simple definition of Eliki is that which need not be created. Doesn't have a source. World, everything has a source. Everything is created. And to clearly define this and to clearly point this out, see, this explains, just very briefly, that Seichel is rooted in the Nefesh. The reason that we understand things in a certain way is because this is the way our Nefesh is. And especially in the koiches of Rotzen and Oinek. You may have heard this concept, that the Rotzen Sheba Nefesh and the Oinek Sheba Nefesh, this is what's reflected in the Seichel. What is the difference between the way it is in the Oinek and the way it is in the Seichel? In the Oinek it is on a constant basis. This is the way the Nefesh is. In the Seichel it comes as an emanation. You find out about it. It's discovered. Like the Rambam describes Seichel. He says that Seichel is something that is continuously increased. What does that mean? That everything that you have in Seichel, even something that you know, you see clearly, this is the absolute truth, still you know it as a discovered truth. You know the difference between a discovered truth and a natural truth? Natural truth means that you know it without ever even thinking about it. You cannot not know it. A discovered truth means that you're convinced of it and it's clear and so forth, but you can forget about it. It's possible to forget about it, even if it is an absolutely convincing point. And you have to sometimes scratch your head. What did I understand about it? And this is the limit of Seichel. This illustrates the basic status of world. This is why world is called Bimokim Uzman. It's Bimokim Uzman. Over time, everything is developed. It is here now because it developed from a minute ago. It is, you don't have the entire world at a glance. You have it as it develops, as it unfolds. This is our world. Our world, even if you see a physical object, and the physical object is so real that you say, as we discussed one time, that what you see, when you see an object, you don't just see it as now, I've discovered it now, but when you see it, you say, I've discovered something that existed before I discovered it. Remember we discussed this. Nevertheless, even there, you can readily identify this object as as something which is being made to be what the object is, not a primary existence. That's what world is. And therefore it doesn't have a sense of a lakus at all, because a lakus does not come into being. A lakus is a constant. And he says further, not only the mahus or lakus, but even the mitzius or lakus. The whole union of a lakus, as such, to us is a novelty, something that we know only through seichel, not direct knowledge. And then he says in parentheses, which I'm going back just to point out to you the richness of this, that through avoida, a deep avoida, it is possible to be margish or lakus. And the reason this is possible is because the fact is that we do have an neshama. What that means is that although we consciously know only that which I have discovered, which I have learned, which I thought about, but ultimately with my thinking and deep avoida means doing away with the physical limitations. Then you can reach into the neshama where you can actually see a truth, an inherent truth. Actually recognize that and the union of Holocaust per se. But this is, he says, through very, very dedicated and diligent avodah and deep avodah. But otherwise, without avodah, this doesn't exist in this world. So, now we're going further after the parentheses. On page Vov, the 5 lines from the bottom. And as is explained elsewhere, ha'hefresh, the difference between nivroim, the almo de iskasio, le nivroim, the almo de isgalio. The difference between nivroim of almo de iskasio, the creatures, that which exists in the hidden world. So even though that they are nivroim means they are created entities. And as such, they came into being. They're essential. There's not the lakus per se. There's something which a lakus creates. It's a nivra. But it was created in a world that's called Alma de Iskasi, the concealed, the hidden world. And then there is nivroim. In our nivroim that we perceive is Alma de Isgalia, of the revealed world. And after a few lines, I'll go back to explain this concept of Iskasio and Ishapa, or in Isgalia. So it's explained, the nivroim, the Alma de Iskasio, that the nivroim of the hidden and concealed world, Nizhavu, they were created be'oifon, in such a way, liyos miyuchodim bimkoiro, that they should continuously be united with their source. And thus, v'yiyah bohem hergesh hachayus ho'elaki, And thus, in these Nivroim, there will be, they're created in such a way that they would be in them, that they would actually experience a hergish. They feel, and here, as we said before, the word hergish does not mean the emotional feeling, but it means the sense of a chayes eliki. Of a chayes eliki, they would have the sense of a lakus. Avol nivroim de amud is galio, but the nivroim of the revealed world, oifan is havusom hu, the manner in which they are coming to being, is they were intentionally created lihiyois davko nifrodim im koiro, that they should be intently, dafka means emphatically, nifrodim im koirom, separated from their source. This is the meaning of that creation. V'lo yurgash bohem ha'oir v'achayis oliki. So that in them there will not be the sense of the oir and chayis oliki.
This is all like parenthetical to the point of Atzilus would have been enough
Right.
for those to know Hashem, and the rest of the worlds are
Right.
consequently not necessary for this explanation of why.
Right. But everything here in the Hemshech is explained conclusively, not just by the way.
All right.
This is the meaning of a Hemshech. This Inyan, okay, I'm going to take you away a little bit here. Amadis Kassia and Amadis Galio. And the Nivroim that in Amadis Kassia were created in a way, that is Ba'oifim, in such a way that they should be continuously miyuchad with their source, with the Lakus. And Amadis Galio, they were created in a way that they should not be. These two things, that these are Nivroim that are created in a way to be separate entities, and they are in Amadis Galio, is correlated. Because they are in Amadis Galio, this is why they're created in such a way that they should be separate entities. Because these are the other type of Niroim that are Amadis Kasio, this is why they're created in a way that they should not be separate entities and they should feel the Inyam Holocaust. And this is the proper place to discuss this term of Iskasio and Iskalia. Which is used in Chassidus all over. Gilui Hoyer. What is the concept of Gilui? The first step, so to speak, the basic illustration that gives us a sense of what is meant by Iskasi and Isgalio is thought and speech. Everything that comes into speech had to have gone through thought first. Speech that is not gone through thought is not called speech. This is making sounds. It's not called speech. Human speech means that thought is expressed in speech. Yet, we see that in order to express in speech a simple thought that took one but a few seconds to conceptualize may take hours to express in speech. Is he creating anything there? He cannot be creating. It has to come from the thought. So what is the difference between the way it is in thought and the way it comes into speech? The difference is that in thought it is an almodis casio, And in speech, it is an Almodius Gallia. What does that mean? Everything that is in speech was contained in the thought. But in the thought, it was contained inherently. And in speech, everything that is contained inherently in the thought is now revealed and defined. To illustrate this on a more mundane level, you said, I'm going from Seagate to Crown Heights. This statement includes the following. I'm going to step out of the yeshiva, get into my car, make a U-turn, make the first right turn, go around, get out of the gate, run down the First Avenue, make a turn, make all the turns until I get in Crown Heights. When you conceptualize first, I'm going to Crown Heights, you have all of these turns right there in that thought. But then all these turns are inherently included in this simple statement, I'm going to Crown Heights. Because you know the route to Crown Heights. So therefore in that thought is already included everything. But it's included in the form of iskasio. It's included in the form of the essence. The essence meaning what? What is the essence of this whole trip? The essence of the whole trip are not these turns. The essence of the whole trip is going to Crown Heights from Seagate. In this essence are included all of these turns, which means that when you are describing all of these turns, or you're actually making these turns, you don't necessarily think, oh, I'm going to Crown Heights. If you're describing, you're making these turns. When you look at the turns, you don't know where you're going. You may be going on Surf Avenue and you want to go, who else? Who knows? I mean, you want to go to further down to Jamaica. It's the same turn. Which means that here, when it comes to his galus, you cannot tell from each individual part what it's connected to, what it represents. Its essence, what is its source? What makes you make the turn? This is that it's disconnected from its source. You follow?
I got lost.
Okay.
Why is that called revelation, though? You're saying this.
Okay, one second. And let me get him back on board here. Okay. In the thought, you had one simple thought.
Because you yourself know how to go there, right?
You know how to go there. You're saying, I'm going to Crown Heights, right? And in that term are included all the various terms.
For you
Each, what?
For you it's clear that.
Right. Besides it being clear, but if you think of any turn, any part of that this thought incorporates, you immediately see that you make this turn because it leads you to that, because ultimately it leads to Crown Heights. In other words, each individual turn represents a movement towards Crown Heights. This is how it is in thought. In speech, when you say, I'm going this way, you can't tell where you're going. You know, just you're going this way. You can't tell that you're going there this way because you're going to Crown Heights. Because this turn itself can lead you any place. Which means each turn stands individually, separated from its source, separated from its motivation, the direction that you're actually seeking. So this, in effect, is an illustration of an entity that emanates from a source, but it separates. It separates from the source. Whereas in thought, each one of these turns are contained within their source, within the aim as to where you're going. So this is why it's called Yisgalio. Yisgalio means that all the details, all the ingredients, all the content that's in the source is now expressed individually. Because going from Seagate to Crown Heights is not just, air miles. It entails a lot of different turns. And these turns are now expressed individually. That's meant is Galio. That was the content of that statement is now revealed in all its detail.
But it seems like so much is lost as well. I mean, you're losing like the
essence,
the connection.
The connection, yes.
So how is that? That doesn't. I mean, and it still constitutes as a revelation.
Yes. That this is the definition of revelation. Revelation means, now let me explain to you where that leads. What's the next step? That leads to the following. That in thought, only one who actually knows and can approximate the relation, the relative relationship, relative position between Crown Heights and Seagate. For someone who doesn't know, he would never be able to do it, to follow those directions. Whereas if you are Megala, if you express them, he doesn't know why you're telling him to make these turns. And yet if he follows them correctly, he will get there. This means that it became a real entity. It was Nisgala. When you read here in this Sefer, and there are no vowels written into the Sefer, the vowels are contained in the word. Someone who does not know how to derive the vowels from the word would get lost, would not be able to follow this. Would not be able to read it, would not be able to define, to identify what it says. Even if he knew Lashon Kodesh. If you reveal the inherent vowel, then even someone who does not know the meaning of the word can read it. This means revealing. So this was all, so to speak, an analogy. But coming to something closer to the Inyan that we're talking about, something more significant. In, again, using Machshava v'Dibur, but on a more significant level. It would be that when you are thinking an engrossing thought, even though all thought is by utilizing some language, some words, some oasis it's called. Makes no difference what the language is. Sometimes the oasis are just graphic, but there's some form of description. What are you thinking about? You're thinking the essence of the thought, that which is which is in your mind, that which is in your seichel, that which is in your midas, that which is significant to your life. Then you actually recognize, and your thought is then actually connected to the essence of what you're thinking about. Whereas when you speak it out, there the essence is kind of lost, and what you're revealing are the forms with which you thought it through. This is what we said yesterday. Well, we didn't have a shir, but we had a little session. We talked. So we had been seen over here yesterday. So he asked, what are all of these vikulhis? Why in the Rebbe Hashana there are so many vikulhis? Vikulhis means etc. So we explained to him that in describing and transmitting in words from one person to the other, there could be at three different levels. It could be at a level where you transmit something that you have learned from words, from someone else, and you understood it and you can transmit it. In that case, you can transmit the whole thought, everything that you know about it, to someone else. Then there is another level where you transmit to someone something that you know beyond learning, because you have seen it or you experienced it. Something that you've experienced, you cannot transmit the experience itself. You can say certain peripheral aspect of it, but you cannot actually give the feeling that you have had during the experience. Then there's a third level where you are describing to someone something that you're currently experiencing. Not something that you experienced yesterday and now you're just remembering what it was like, but something that you're currently seeing. Then even that which you are currently seeing and you are putting it into words, also it does not describe what you are actually looking at. Not only the experience, not only the feeling you have, but just what you're looking at, because what you're looking at is much broader than anything you say in words. So we said that this is the Vikulis. The Rebbe says, I'm seeing more, but that's all I can say. But the point in this is that in the Machshava, Amadis Kasya, the Indian is that there you are actually currently connected to the essence. And when you're connected to the essence, then everything that's contained therein, all the words and all the oases, are all connected to the essence. What kind of words and letters and sentences does a person have in his thought? Not like in speech, where the words and the letters are constructed in order to be able to transmit so that the person will understand it. The words and the letters that are contained in thought are words and letters that are exclusively coming from the thought itself. They are formed by the essence of what you're thinking about, not of how you want it to be expressed. This is what I'm discussing. You look like you didn't catch it. In speech, before you say something, you have a thought you want to say. Before you say something, before you say this thought. Besides that you know the thought, you then translate the thought in how am I going to present it?
Right.
How am I going to put it into words? Yeah. What should I say first? What should I say second?
Okay.
Why? Why does it have to be first and second? Not because of the thought, but because of the person I'm talking to.
Oh.
So that he will understand it. In other words, it's entirely secondary to the thought itself. The thought itself, you can blur it out into words. but nobody will understand what you're saying. In order to be understood, you have to plan out how you're going to say it. Whereas in thought, you don't think, how should I think about this? You think only of what you're thinking, of the inyan that you're thinking. Not how should I formulate the thought. So there, the words are entirely emanations from the thought itself. They're not separate entities at all.
I don't understand that a little bit.
Okay. It's a beautiful day. What is that? So I said these words, it's a beautiful day, right?
Yeah.
And then you think. You look at, oh yeah, it's a beautiful day. Do you think in those words it's a beautiful day, or do you just think of what it is?
What it is.
When you think of what it is, do you think in words, in some way of thought?
No, you relate to the thing.
You relate to the thing, but if it's in thought, there are words to it. But the words are those that are only that which comes directly from what you're seeing.
Right.
It's like the brightness, the color, whatever it is. There is no additional words added to it.
No.
Which means that even though there are words, the words are completely united with the essence. And in each word, you see the whole essence. You see how this essence reveals itself through this word rather than being a separate entity. Okay. And this is the connection. Because they are Nivroim in Almodis Galio, in order to be Nivroim in Almodis Galio, they have to be created in such a way that the Oyer Chayes Eliki should not be felt in them. Because if the Oyer Chayes Eliki is felt in them, then they will not be revealing. They will be united with the Oyer Chayes Eliki, with the essence. They will not be Megala what's contained therein. And the same thing in Almodis Kasya, because in Almodis Kasya, this is why they are united with their source. Okay, we go right at 2 lines from the bottom, right at the end of the line. V'im kein, and thus, harei amiti, amitas ha'yediyah, v'hasoga be'elokus, so thus, they see clearly that the true knowledge and hasoga in elokus, hu ba'olam atzilus, it is in olam atzilus, starting from olam atzilus, hu ba'olam is ein soiv dafka, and then higher worlds, because they are almodis kasyo, they're united with their source. V'kach hoyo oifen is havusom. This inyan that they have a hasoga and a lokus is actually part of the way they were created. In other words, they did not acquire it through avoida, like you said in the parentheses before, because they reached a higher level. This is how they were created, because that's what their function is. Hainu shenizhavu bevchinas kiruv, which means that they were created bevchinas kiruv in a manner that they should recognize their closeness to their source. V'sheyiya bohem bechinas gilui ha'oir dafka. That they should be close, and that by them there should be gilui ha'oir. Gilui ha'oir means something different, in a certain sense, than the word gilui that we described before. Here the word Gilui means that they sense the oir. Normally, the union of Gilui means, like what we said before, means Gilui means the oir should be in a keli. So Gilui actually refers to the keli. But Gilui ha'oir is a different concept.
Sometimes I heard a word and said Alma discussive, Alma is Galia. Alma discussive means that worldliness is concealed, and then Alma is Galia means worldliness is revealed. So there is.
Okay.
Is it stuck?
It's what?
That's what you're saying? Because it can be Gilui of different things. If it's oil, Gilui of oil, then it's that's a concealment of the materials, of the cave.
Yeah, but why? What I'm trying to get clarification, and here we said Almadi is Galia, this is Gilui, and here we say Gilui Ho'er,
Right.
and Gilui Ho'er, if we say Gilui, then would mean the opposite of Almadi is Kassia.
Right,
But Gilui Ho'er is a different concept than when we said Gilui over here. Here Gilui means revealing the content in Kelim. Gilui Ho'er is a different concept. How can you use the same word in meaning two different things? Because here we say not Bechinas Gilui, we say Gilui Ho'er. Gilui Ho'er, this is like one point. Gilui Ho'er. Gilui Ho'er is a different meaning. This brings us to understand the difference between Oir and Keli. In essence, what is the difference between Oir and Keli? Oir does not exist, is a non-entity without the Moir. Like you see sunlight. You don't say light, but you say sunlight. Why? Because it's synonymous. It's not a separate entity. If the sun sets, there's no light. So when we say oir, we mean to say that which emanates from its source. This means oir. In the keli, the oil is concealed. The opposite than Amud is Kas and Amud is God. In the keli, the oil is concealed, which means you don't see the source. You see how it's presented in words, in keli. But we have in the higher worlds, where you actually look straight directly at the oil, you see the oil itself. That's mean Gilui oil. So here the word Gilui means the opposite of before, in a certain sense. But in truth, it's a similar meaning. But since we're talking about two different things, that's why it comes out like this. Gilui avoid means that you see the etzem, that you see the source of the oil. So therefore, Oyom Hatzilus, like you said before, Oyom Hatzilus would have been sufficient to accomplish this point, this purpose of revealing the Shleimus HaKoiches. But it says in Zohar that the purpose of the creation was so that he would be known. Atzilus is where he is known. Gilui Ha'oir. Since it's Gilui Ha'oir, and Oir means that there is a Moir, so there is a Gilui, and it becomes known. So it would be sufficient to go down to Atzilus, but what's the point of going down beyond Atzilus? There is complete concealment. So therefore that cannot be the conclusive, the exhaustive reason for the creation. Ube'emes, he goes even further. The truth is, essentially what he is going to say now, is that perhaps even Elam Ha'atzilus is not absolutely necessary for this. He's saying that the creation is for the purpose that he should be known. There is an aspect, there is a possibility of knowing even higher than Atzilus. And therefore you don't even have to go down to Atzilus. Inyan ha'idiyo be'oir ein soif. The inyan of knowing, idiyo, knowing it in soif. What does knowing mean? Again, this is coming back to what we said before. The word knowing means that you're not it, but you know about it. It's something that comes to you. The union of idiyo and ein soif shayach gam koidom shenivra ha'elam. It's really possible and applicable even before the world was created. Before the world was created, there were also many madreges in Elokus. Such madreges where it is appropriate to refer to it as saying that this is a madrege that knows of Elokus. Because it's not Etzem itself, it knows of Atzmus. V'koidem shene'etzel Atzilus ho'elyon. Before even Atzilus came into being. Also the union of Yidiyah. In a nutshell, Yidiyah is, where is Yidiyah not possible? Yidiyah is not appropriate to refer to when it is in the essence itself, in the Etzem. Anything that's not in the Etzem, it's possible to say Yidiyah. I know it.
You can't know you is what you're saying? That's why.
No, you can know you, but it's not called knowing.
It's called the level that Hashem is known, contained within himself. It's removed.
It's not called knowing. Like a person knows, if one knows his toe, did he discover his toe? Is it knowing? He knows his toe and he knows his hand simultaneously. It's the same knowledge. It's not two different pieces of information. Because they all unite into a single entity. Definitely, the word knowing is not applicable properly. I know where my toe is. Is that an appropriate statement? I mean, in a matter of speech, you can use that term, but it's totally inappropriate because you know it not because you found it out, because you discovered it, you learned about it. You know it inherently, so it's not called knowledge. If you say that the purpose of creation is that he should be known, means that he should be known. But a place where he is not in essence, he should be known.
But in Atzilus, you said that the orphan is Havusam, that they know him.
That's right.
Yeah. So what kind of knowledge it is? If they made this way, they didn't discover it.
No, it's still knowledge. I didn't mean discovering. And knowledge means that. That's right.
Yeah, that's all.
That's right. No, it's the appropriate terms. You know it means you know it through the faculty of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas yourself, you don't know it through the faculty of knowledge. So he says that the truth is that even before the world was created, and also the union of Yidio Be'er Sof is possible. In explaining the Zeya Pekudid of Elementaris of Medalev, where he says, Ein Soif lo yikaimo leido. So he explains over there the Shalom. The Zohar says, Ein Soif lo yikaimo leido, which means Ein Soif is not there to be known. doesn't stand for knowledge. In other words, it's not knowable. So he says that this inyan, that knowledge, does not exist in Ein Sof. The Hainu koidem alois harotz. That this is true before alois harotz.
I don't understand what you mean. Kamil it doesn't exist to be known.
Right. It's an expression in Zohar. You have to, the form of the Zohar language. Like Kamil Eido, the Kamil means stands. Does not stand for knowing. To be known.
To be known. Its existence is not for other people to know of it.
Right. Well, within Ein Sof, what it means is as within Ein Sof, there is no such thing as knowing. One part of Ein Sof should know the other part of Ein Sof. You know what I'm saying? There's no such thing as knowing. Ein Sof l'kaimeli, the whole union of knowing, which means you know through some kind of connection, even if it's close connection, it doesn't apply to Ein Sof. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand. Okay. It just the language. It seems to be.
Yeah, the language is a certain language, but I'm putting into a context that we said.
All right.
Because I explained to what's meant knowing. So he says. So it says in the Zohar, Ein Sof l'kaimel leido. So he explains, Inshallah, the Hainu koidem alizorotz, that there is no possibility to refer to knowing in Ein Sof applies to the highest in Yonim, even before Alois Horotzen. Alois Horotzen means, Alois Horotzen, it sounds like you don't know what it is?
No, I've heard it before.
Alois Horotzen means
the first will.
The first will. The will to create. We haven't had it here. But Oila Horotzen, that there was a Rotzen that came up to create. So before the Inyan, that Madrege, what's called Alois Horotzen, so there is nothing there but Ein Sof, and the whole Inyan, the term Eido, it doesn't apply. So that's what he says. Koid Alois Horotzen, that's what the Avok Sha'olah Birtzoina Yizborech. Lahatzil. But once that there was Alois Horotzen, to be Matzil, even before any creation, before Atzilus. Os Kaim Oleido, then it already is Kaimel Eido. Then it is appropriate to refer to it as Eido. There is something to be known. Then it's Kaimel Eido. V'hainu, even though that this is Rotzen. Rotzain in our experience, and when we give a moshel for Rotzain, we say everything comes from Rotzain and knowing this koyches makifim. This is like the essence of the person. The Rotzain. What is, for instance, the Rotzain? What can be kind of referred to as Rotzain in the human being, in a person? So everybody can say, oh, Rotzain, I want an apple. Oh, that's Rotzain. This is not Rotzain. The Rotzain that we're referring to is a Rotzain that is all-encompassing the whole person. Koyach Makif. The essence of the person, the essence of the Rotzain. The Rotzain that every human being inherently wants to live. This is called Rotz. He is not even aware that he has that Rotz. This Rotzain motivates, is the highest behind every activity, every action. Get up, sit down. It all has that Rotzain in it. So in the human being, Rotzain is the highest thing that we experience. Rotzain anointing. The highest thing that we can relate to. Because in fact, the human being is not an atzmi. Human being is a created entity. You say he wants to live means he wants to be conscious of life. He wants to be conscious of what's going on. But when you talk Lamailo, Rotzin itself is also a creation. Alois Rotzin. So when there's Alois Rotzin, then it's possible a new from idea. Because there, a Rotzin is also a creation. It's not the Yetzim.
But it doesn't become separate.
What?
It doesn't become separate. And how?
Right, it doesn't
Since
come.
it doesn't become separate, how does that constitute as knowing from the out? You have to know from the outside, if I understand correctly.
In a certain, it does become separate. It's not separate in the same sense as Olam Hasiyah. And what it's his Rotz. But it is something that is completely novel to the essence. And there was a whole, this itself, actually, Alois Rotzen is perhaps even the greatest creation in the entire process. Because this is the most novel thing. Before Alois Rotzen, there is absolutely nothing. The union that we say that it hasn't become separate is to denote something different, something else. That this Rotzin contains and represents the entire koyach from Ein Sof to create.
Right.
It's not like a separate entity, because the koyach to create is from Ein Sof. And this Rotzen has the full koyach to create. In that respect, we say it doesn't become separate. Of course not. But the etzem meaning that there is a Rotzen, that itself constitutes a separation, a new entity.
Well, I mean, what about when we say in the Tanya that when a person studies the Torah, it's a Ratzon of Hashem, and his seichel is like being makif over this inyan. So therefore, he has Hashem himself inside of his seichel. Why? Because Hashem and his Ratzon can't be separated. So his Ratzon is him, and therefore, if you have a piece of Torah in your head, then you have like the Hashem in your head. But now you're saying that it's separate enough that from the Ratzon you can have a yediyah of Hashem.
Right. It's both. Hu Resoina Yechod. Your point is very well taken. Hu Resoina Yechod. And yet, if it were really Echod in the sense that you can have idea, why do you call it Rotzen? And why do you say that the Rotzen came into being? Then the Rotzen was always there.
Ah. Right.
Clearly, these are extremely subtle things.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you go along, some things become a little bit clearer. But there are both. And this is what he says, that's what it says in Shalom, that she'ola birtzoyne laha'atzil, os kaimeleido. Then it already, there is such thing as knowing. The hainu, and that is lefi she'orotzoin hu bechinas gilui. Because Rotzoin is Bechinas Gilui. Here the word Gilui means back to what we said before.
Separate from the
right,
source.
revealing an Indian, revealing something that was there before. V'liyo is the kvar netzal shom Bechinas Ho'atzilus Bekoyach. Since that the Indian Ho'atzilus Bekoyach was already contained in that Rotzoin, as we said before, the Koyach and Koyel, Lochein, canal, it says canal, I'm saying before the Bekoyach, Lochein, Kaim Oleido. Therefore, there is possible, there is the union of idea is applicable. Gentlemen, I have to cut at this point.
Taking my job, Rabbi.
Ah, I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna have anything
You
to
weren't
sit-
here yesterday,
I'm
that's
not
why.
gonna have anything to sit around here anymore.
Yeah,
so-
sure, I apologize. You weren't here yesterday.
I hear you.
That's why I got to do it. Never again.
You're gonna kick me out of the yeshiva system, but you're not turning things around. You go.